I knew that my parents didn't really care about me that much. They always cared about my brother. But what I did not expect was for them to spend every single dime from my inheritance, just so they could spend it on my brother's wedding. Because, apparently, a wedding is more important than an education, which is what I was going to spend the inheritance on. Guys, I need your help. Let me tell you my story and you tell me what you would do about your parents who are out of control. Hello to anybody reading this. I'm 24, I'm male, and I don't know what to do right now, so I've come here for some answers. I want to sue my parents. Yep, you read it right. My parents hate me for a really small incident that happened when I was 9. So, why do I want to sue them? They spent my entire college fund on my useless brother's wedding. Oh yeah, my girlfriend Shannon thinks that I should just cut ties and move on with my life. She knows that a lot of money is going to be spent trying to sue them. And she fears that they'll use their connection to turn the case against me. She's an overthinker. And she's intuitive too. She's always watching out for me, and I have a history of not listening to her. It caused a strain in our relationship, and I think I'll lose her if I go ahead with this. This post is about my relationship with Shannon. For all of you to understand the situation, I'll tell you the necessary details of the relationship with my family. My parents, they have been neglecting both me and my brother ever since we were born. We lived in our grandfather's house, and when I was a kid, my grandfather told me stories about how my father, John, spent his prime years messing around and how he wasn't capable. Not able to handle anything that was laid out for him by my grandfather. He wanted me and my brother Lester to always aim high. My grandfather's stories and experiences fascinated me. I spent most of my time with him, and I once overheard my parents talking about cheating him of a huge amount of money. I was very loyal to Grandpa and immediately told him, without knowing the full story. My grandfather was bedridden and could not understand what was going on behind his back. He had no means to investigate, so he relied on his friend, Jason, who was a retired police officer and a former private detective, to find out what was going on. My grandfather wanted a traditional family because, well, he wanted my father to take over after him since he was sick. He had left my father completely in charge. Jason had collected evidence that my father was doing illegal activities in the company, and it was bad. I'm not going to get into the absolute details of what they were doing, but I just know that my grandfather was heartbroken. He cried a lot, and I know that man never cried. He felt very betrayed by the whole thing. My father apologized to him, and my grandfather gave him a lecture about the blood and sweat that he put into the business. My parents knew that I was the one who told Grandpa that something was off. I was a kid at the time, and I didn't know any better. My parents started to resent me for what I did. I don't regret what I told Grandfather. I told him the truth, but unfortunately nothing good came out of the truth. My grandfather forgave my father, but he never changed his ways. My grandfather died a year later, and he had left something in his will for everyone. He had left the house for my parents. I had an aunt, but she died in a car accident just days before her wedding. We were all prepared for it since he was ill for a long time. But I felt like I had a lost pillar in my life, you know. My grandfather had left a lot of money for me and Lester. It was enough to get us through school and college, without having to rely on my parents. My dad was left to deal with the business. My father had already messed up with my grandfather when he was alive, and after my grandfather passed away, the business hit complete rock bottom because of my father's poor decisions. He was barely managing to keep it alive, and a lot of the good employees just left because of the poor management. A lot of people were fired, and the company lost its glow, and they lost the clients because they lost the people who made the clients what they wanted. Not that my father or mother had any sort of shame for ruining my grandfather's legacy. They spent their days living a luxurious life out of how much they had left, you know. They would host parties, go shopping, go on vacations, and do all sorts of things they could not afford to do. My grandfather had hired a caretaker for me and my brother, and he took great care of me after my grandfather, because my parents were least bothered. When I was around, 13, my father sacked the caretaker because I was old enough to take care of myself and I didn't need a babysitter. But he was the only support that I had, and when he got fired, it really took a toll on me. I had no one to talk to during my teenage years. My brother was an a-hole, and my parents absolutely neglected me. They held resentment for what I did as a kid. My parents' behavior really affected me, but I spent my school years focusing on my academics and trying to just get good grades. My brother was not very good at academics, and as soon as he completed college, he wanted to get married to a girl named Jessica, and she is filthy rich. She didn't have to worry about anything in her life, and my parents saw this as a business opportunity, and Jessica's parents were well willing to acquire my father's company while keeping him in the company as CEO, while my father will still be holding a major stake. It was a win-win situation, and even I thought it was a smart move since my money's got to come from somewhere, and at least the business will be kept alive, you know. Lester and Jessica had a grand wedding. There were a lot of people at the wedding, and you could clearly see that a lot of money was spent on it. When the wedding took place, I had no idea who was spending what. I was just glad to be invited. I was sidelined throughout the wedding like any other guest. It was really painful to watch your own family neglect you in public. I was used to it, so I didn't hold a grudge. There was even a post-wedding party for Lester and Jessica, and a woman came up to me and asked me who I was. I explained that I'm Lester's brother. The woman started to praise my family's efforts towards arranging the whole thing and spending so much money. I asked her who she was, and she turned out to be Jessica's aunt. It really concerned me when my parents got so much money to spend on the wedding, but I did not think about it for long because it was none of my business, or that her aunt must have had a confusion because I was pretty sure that the arrangements had to be made by Jessica's family. About 2 years after my brother's wedding, it was time for me to go to university, and that's when I turned to the money I inherited from Grandpa. I was very happy at the time, because I got a letter from Ivy League, which I'm not going to mention here which one it was, but you know my story isn't that sad because in the end I made it and I studied at the same university. But at the time my world came crashing down because of the news I received. My whole inheritance had already been spent. My parents were the trustees of my money, and they took out everything in my name, and I went to confront them and told them that I needed the money for university. My father calmed me down and tells me that I did not need to go to university and offered me a job. I declined and asked for my money back. My father just blatantly told me that all of the money was spent on my brother's wedding, and I was absolutely furious. At first, my father tried to tell me how important the wedding was and how well we needed to make a good impression on them because my brother's in-laws were going to help us. My mom added to it by crying about how she almost had to sell all her jewelry. The two of them started to convince me to not make a big deal out of it. They told me education wasn't that important anyway, and that I should contribute by using my brains in the family business. I told them I wasn't interested and that they had already sold off the business anyways. At first, my parents were really calm, but I was hell-bent on making them give me the money. When I refused to listen to them, they start to get aggressive and condemned me from snitching on my own parents. Well, I told my father that he was nothing but a failure. I gave him a really good speech about how he had failed as a father for the both of us. He could not handle the business either. I concluded by threatening to sue them. My parents both laughed at the idea and told me that I don't have the guts to do such a thing because I would lose this case and would lose my face in front of everyone. My father told me to behave or else he would kick me out and I would be homeless. They called me useless and said that I would be nothing without them. Well, I couldn't handle them a second longer, so I packed my bags and left out of rage. I didn't know where to go. I was planning to sleep on the bench of the city park for that night, but Shannon found me and insisted that I come live at her house. It's only been 3 months since our relationship started at the time, and it was really awkward going to her house. Disregarding everything, I decided to visit her house instead of sleeping on the street under the threat of criminal attack. I owe my life to Shannon and her father Dave, you know. If it wasn't for them, I don't know what I would have done. My other friends were really supportive at the time too, and a friend of my grandfather was a manager at the bank my family had accounts with. He helped me finance my education with a student loan without a guarantor or a cosigner. Everything was set for me to go to university. I couldn't thank of them enough. Well, they supported me throughout it all. I juggled between college and numerous part-time jobs. My parents did not call me even once, nor did they try to reconcile. Lester called me once or twice to ask me to apologize to mom and dad. After a lot of thinking, I decided to call them to my graduation in hopes that someday we would be able to sort out the differences. I didn't want my family to miss out on such an important event. They did not show up, and Lester told me that they did not come because I had not apologized properly. Shannon and Dave showed up for me, and they are an important part of my life. I consider them to be my real family, and since I left my house, they have been with me through thick and thin. I really appreciate them for being in my life and giving me so much love. It's been 3 years since I've graduated, and my family has not contacted me even once. Shannon has always watched out for me, and she always was so mature, you know. Oh well, I want to sue them for spending my inheritance, and this has always been the plan ever since I left home. Shannon does not agree with me, because I still have a lot of debt to clear out, and she feels I need to focus on work more, because it's, you know, one of the only things that I have left playing into my hand. Suing them has always been my motive, and I'm afraid I'll let Shannon down. I don't know what to do, and I could really use some help and advice right now. I'm going to need some strong consultation because I don't know anything about suing people. Please tell me what I should do. What's up, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic day. So we do have multiple updates to hop into. I just want to let you know I'm going to be dropping a story every single day. So if you're into these sort of stories, hit that subscribe button. There's 3 updates we're going to hop into today. So let's get started with update number 1. First of all, I would like to thank you for the comments. It really helped a lot. It's been several weeks and I received some comments telling me that I should not risk my relationship because of the conflict between me and my parents. They wronged me. They thought I could not sue them or do anything about it and laughed in my face. I wanted to show them that they're wrong, so I decided that I should sue, but it's really not going in my favor. Shannon is being supportive about it, but she's disappointed at the same time. I did a lot of thinking after my previous post, but the rage would not go away. I was angry about the way I was treated, and Lester has handed everything I'd struggled throughout my life for even the basics. My parents would be affectionate towards Lester and completely ignore me. I wanted to get back at them for the neglect. Shannon would never understand, because her father has always been loving towards her. And she hasn't faced what I had gone through. My grandfather valued me in my dreams, and just left me something so I could become something in this lifetime. They stole it from me, and I cannot live my life letting it all be. I needed to tell them in the world about how they hurt. What I wanted to do was tell everyone how I feel, you know. The process of filing the lawsuit was absolutely grueling and draining. I've never imagined how hard it can actually be. I was starting to understand what Shannon was talking about. However, my anger continued to motivate me to go ahead and fight for myself. Shannon did not try to stop me, but she was still worried. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in family disputes and inheritance issues. My lawyer was pretty confident I would win, and his confidence gave me a heads up that nothing could go wrong. I found a case accusing my parents of misusing the inheritance funds that were meant for me and my education. I felt the sense of empowerment when I filed the case. I thought, that when they would receive this notice, they would get scared and try to come and talk to me and take my case back. Oh boy, I was wrong. Once I filed the lawsuits, my parents hired lawyers and were ready to fight the legal battle against me. I was still confident I would win, but little did I know how important having a good lawyer can be. My parents had a whole legal team with the best minds to advise them. They countersued me for defamation and claimed that I was saying false stuff and was trying to tarnish their image by making false accusations. According to their lawyers, I had no right to sue them because as my legal guardians, they had full control over my inheritance funds. They turned the case and made it about my character. My parents collected all the evidence to paint me as a troublesome teenager. They called all the housekeepers and paid them to speak against me and tell the court that I was an ungrateful son. They also collected evidence, and they were going through financial trouble, and all the money from the inheritance was spent so that me and my brother could have a good life. They played the victim card and claimed that the only reason they spent on my brother's wedding was to save the family business, which benefited everyone, including me. They had all the records that they were going through financial issues. My father also told the court that he was willing to offer me a good position in the company, so I could work hard to get through university, but I wanted everything a spoon-fed to me. My father claimed that I left the house, but they always tried to maintain contact through Lester. My parents were telling the court half-baked lies, and my lawyer was not able to defend me. I kept fighting, but there was no conclusion drawn to the case. It seemed that my parents were just delaying the case. The delays was causing me a financial burden. The legal fees started to pile up and drain me, and as the days passed, I was starting to regret and wish I had listened to Shannon. I promised her that this would not consume my life, but it did. I thrown myself into the lawsuit without thinking about the long-term consequences. I had a debt to repay, and I was blowing a hole in my pockets. I thought that somewhere my parents cared about me, but as days went by, the realizations just struck that they don't. They were hell-bent on protecting themselves, and there was no sign of them realizing the pain that they put me through. I'm currently financially drained, and I'm thinking about quitting. I don't know what to do anymore. I have no idea, and I have no one to talk to. I can't face Shannon even though she's not saying, "I told you so." I don't have it in me to tell her she's right. I just feel bad that justice is a difficult path, and that money and power affect it a lot, you know? I'm still gonna try until I can, but I'm thinking I should just settle instead. Update number 2. Hey guys, it's been a few months since. I never thought the day would finally come when I would be writing this, but I'm happy to have you well here today. In my last update, I told you about how the legal battle with my parents was disastrous. It took a toll on me emotionally. I didn't know where to go, and Dave called me up to talk to me about him. I didn't go to him myself, but he was concerned. He came to me to talk about it, and we had a long talk about my feelings and emotions regarding my parents. He told me that if I had taken that step, I should not stop until I get the desired outcome. He told me to get a better lawyer instead of wasting my money on someone who can't get me the real result, especially if I'm the one who's right. Dave suggested a lawyer. The legal fees were pretty big and out of my budget for 1,000 years, but I put all my money into it. I even took out another debt for it, and I kept second-guessing myself and thought that I was mad stupid for doing this, but I wanted to do it anyways and live my life without any regrets, you know. I briefed my lawyer, and he investigated. I was getting impatient because he was taking a really long time to give me a solid response, and my anxiety grew over time, but my lawyer managed to make a pretty strong case. My lawyer managed to get bank records that show that my parents spent on luxurious items and went on all sorts of vacations. All that money was taken from me and my brother's inheritance. It clearly showed that they were not struggling, and instead they were using the money for their own benefit. We went to court with strong evidence, and the judge reevaluated my case. The momentum shifted in my favor, which was unexpected for my parents' lawyers, who were pretty confident until now. My parents were scrambling, and they started making stupid claims, such as they were the ones who threw tantrums for all the luxurious items. They claimed that all the transactions were made in good faith. The sheer amount of expenses made it impossible to justify their actions. Everything clearly started to show that my parents had drained my inheritance for their own benefit, not mine. The judge ruled in my favor, and they were ordered to give me the house my grandfather left, and I have kept that demand. The court also ordered them to pay for the damages and mental distress. Their case for defamation, they had nothing to show in court for all the lies that they told. I'm grateful that Shannon had been with me throughout the whole process, and I'm thankful for Dave's support. My parents had to cover the litigation cost, so that really helped me a lot. I can also use the money I received to repay some of the debts. I'm so happy I got my house back. It's brought back so much of my childhood memories. The reason I asked for the house was that, I promised Shannon that one day we would live in a really big home, and I want to fulfill my promise because she's always stood by me, and I'm happy about that victory. But it did not feel as satisfying as I thought it would. My parents had no remorse for the hurt that they've given me. They shot cold looks at me as if I'm the one who wronged them. They've been telling people that I'm such an ungrateful son. My parents moved out of the property into a rented apartment, and they have completely ruined my character in front of people. I feel bad about it, but hopefully I won't dwell on it much. Final update. Hey guys, I know it's been several months and I never thought I'd even be back here. The big scoop is that Jessica divorced Lester. Jessica was sick and tired of Lester doing nothing about his life and just living so unambitious. Their fights were getting out of control, and Lester's laziness was affecting their relationship. Jessica had the burden of going out for work and managing the household too. Lester and Jessica's relationship had lost its spark. Jessica wanted to get out of the relationship and move on, so she filed for divorce. The divorce proceedings were quick. Lester had signed a prenuptial agreement, and he got nothing in the divorce. Jessica got to keep her only son, and Lester could only see him on weekends. Lester had gotten used to the lazy lifestyle with Jessica handling everything. Lester moved back with my parents. Jessica's parents had no interest in keeping ties with Lester and my parents after the divorce. Jessica's dad dug up the past and found records of all the mistakes my dad has made while running the company. He called a meeting with all the stakeholders and decided to highlight the mistakes. The fact that I won the court case made it worse for him. Everyone decided that my father was incompetent and he was forced to step down. My father had already stupidly sold off his stake little by little to Jessica's dad to keep up with his frivolous spending. My father is how you call it, doom. There wasn't enough money left for them to maintain their lifestyle. Lester went into an absolute downward spiral after the divorce. He could not make a proper living for himself. And my parents kept calling him useless for not being able to do anything. They blamed him for their condition, as any of it would have never happened if Jessica did not divorce him. They forced Lester to apologize to Jessica so that she would give him another chance, but Jessica had already moved. My father went back to Jessica's dad to beg him for another chance, but he was kicked out by them. Jessica's father played his cards well, but my father acted foolish. The only thing he could ever do is spend money, but he's incapable of earning it, you know. My parents came home along with Lester to apologize to me and to beg me to let them stay in the house so they can save on rent. They emotionally blackmailed me and tried to convince me in the name of Grandpa. I told them to leave and never show their face to me again. My parents gave me a piece of their mind while leaving, but I told them that there was no hope of reconciling after everything they did. Their apology stems from selfishness rather than guilt, and I'll never be able to forgive them. I just feel bad that my father sold off all my grandfather's businesses for his greed. My grandfather put his blood and sweat into it. I'm grateful to Jessica's father for saving it. Even if it's not in the family, it's a far-fetched thought, but maybe Lester's son could continue our family legacy.